They hid the most powerful force within you and dismissed it as a mere myth. From the moment you were born, the world constantly taught you to seek answers externally, to chase meaning through the noise, and to rely on systems never truly designed to set you free. But there's something ancient residing deep inside you, something profoundly real, a dormant power cord like a silent serpent at the base of your spine, patiently waiting. You were told it was just a metaphor, a mystical fantasy, or worse, something dangerous to be avoided. Yet, across thousands of years and dozens of civilizations, this very energy reappears time and again, whispered through the symbols of mystics, pharaohs, and seers. They all spoke of it, all revered it, because they knew awakening it changes everything. This isn't just about meditation, chakras, or new age chatter. This is about raw, electric, undeniable truth. And once you feel it, your life will never be the same. For centuries, humanity has been conditioned to seek power outside of itself through religion, governments, institutions, and gurus. But what if the greatest source of power has always been within you, asleep, waiting to be ignited? Kundalini isn't just a spiritual concept discussed in yoga studios or scribbled in esoteric books. It's an ancient energy technology, a living intelligence interwoven into your very biology. Mystics revered it, empires concealed it, and the modern world misunderstood it, not because it lacked truth, but because it contained too much of it. If this force were fully comprehended, the structures that profit from your confusion would crumble overnight. Kundalini isn't about belief, it's about experience. It is the primordial life force, coiled like a serpent at the base of your spine, waiting to unfurl and ascend through your energetic system, triggering a complete shift in perception, emotion, and consciousness. Ancient yogis in India mapped it with astonishing precision, long before neuroscience even had a name. They described the chakras not as abstract symbols, but as energy portals, each corresponding to stages of human development, psychological evolution, and spiritual embodiment. They didn't imagine this, they experienced it. However, over time, this profound knowledge became buried. Colonial conquest, religious dogma, and institutional fear all contributed to stripping the sacred from science and labeling inner experience as mere superstition. Even the serpent symbol was hijacked. In yogic tradition, the serpent represents raw energy, transformation, and the path to enlightenment. Yet, in Western theology, it was twisted into a villain, something to be feared, avoided, and condemned. The very image that once guided initiates to higher realms was weaponized to keep the masses in spiritual infancy. What better way to control people than to convince them their own awakening is evil? What better way to suppress the sacred than to make the forbidden? And yet, the energy never truly left. It waits silently within all of us. You don't need to be a monk or a mystic to carry Kundalini. You already do. It's embodied in your breath, your body, your nervous system. The only question is, will you ever access it? Some truths are too raw, too powerful, and too real for platforms like this one. If you wish to dive deeper and uncover more hidden knowledge, subscribe to Insights Academy, our free newsletter, via the link in the video description. You'll also receive a digital copy of the Kybalion available for a limited time. Kundalini isn't a trend. It's a revolution of perception. It doesn't ask for followers. It demands truth seekers, people willing to shed layers of false identity and face what lies beneath. This is why it's not taught in schools. This is why it isn't on the front page of scientific journals or celebrated in mainstream spiritual circles. Because it doesn't come from obedience, it shatters it. Once this force begins to stir within you, you cannot be manipulated by fear, shamed by conformity, or seduced by superficiality. You start to see with new eyes, think with new clarity, and feel with new depth. However, it must be approached with profound respect, because Kundalini is not passive. It amplifies what's already within you. If you are grounded, clear, and humble, it can lead to profound transformation. If you are reckless, ego-driven, or unprepared, it can amplify existing confusion. This is why so many traditions safeguarded it behind rituals, disciplines, and inner purity, not to keep people out, but to ensure they were ready. Because when the serpent rises, it doesn't just bring light, it brings everything: the repressed, the hidden, the unresolved. And that's where the real work truly begins. So ask yourself, do you truly want to awaken? Not just to the light, but to the entire truth of who you are and who you've been conditioned to be. Because that is what Kundalini does. It's not an escape from reality. It's an immersion into its deepest layers. And once it starts, there's no going back to sleep. Kundalini isn't a buzzword. It's not a metaphor. It's not something invented by mystics to sell a course or give you a fleeting sense of spiritual meaning. It is real, alive, and already within you. But what it is and what it isn't has been distorted, diluted, and misinterpreted for centuries. What you've likely been told about Kundalini is just the surface. And in some cases, it's completely wrong. Because the truth doesn't fit neatly into modern spiritual branding or textbook psychology. The truth is, Kundalini is the raw, undiluted energy of consciousness itself, an ancient biological intelligence embodied in human form. At its core, Kundalini is your life force in its purest state. It's not your personality. not your thoughts, not your habits. It's what powers all of it. It lies coiled at the base of your spine, in a place known as the Muladhara chakra in Yogit philosophy. But this isn't symbolic language. It's a spiritual anatomical code. It's there, latent, interwoven into your nervous system. An endocrine response is silent, yet ready. And when it awakens, it moves not randomly or chaotically, but through the subtle architecture of your body, activating every dormant part of you, your intuition, your perception, your emotions, your memory, even your biology. But here's where it gets dangerous. Not Kundalini itself, but what we've been taught to believe about it in much of the modern Western world. Kundalini is often presented as a product. You see it on magazine covers, in workshops promising instant enlightenment, in classes claiming you'll feel activated in a single weekend. That's not awakening, that's a performance. True Kundalini awakening isn't a peak moment. It's a process, and it's often not glamorous, not clean, not marketable, not instantly. It means the collapse of everything false. It means letting go of the carefully constructed image of yourself, what you think you are, what you believe, and even what you fear. That's what Kundalini does. It shatters the illusion of who you were, so it can reveal who you've always been. It's not a wave of euphoria or a singular mystical experience. Those things might happen along the way, but they are not the goal. Kundalini isn't here to entertain you. It's here to transform you, and transformation is rarely comfortable. This energy will expose everything. Your pain, your traumas, your attachments, your ego. That's why it has been guarded in sacred traditions with such discipline. It was never meant for mass commercialization. It was meant to be respected. And no, it's not just for monks or gurus. It's for anyone with a nervous system and a soul. But it demands something from you that few are willing to give. Total honesty, not just with others, but with yourself. Because this energy doesn't respond to performance or performance-based spirituality. It doesn't arise just because you're wearing white clothes or chanting mantras. It arises when you are aligned. It arises when your inner world becomes still, stable, and open. It arises when the noise of your life no longer drowns out the signal of your truth. What Kundalini is not, is a shortcut. It's not a bypass to wisdom. If anything, it's a fast track to everything you've been avoiding. This is why people who awaken prematurely or without guidance often experience confusion, emotional turmoil, or physical discomfort. It's not because Kundalini is dangerous. It's because it amplifies everything that is still unhealed. It doesn't allow you to hide, and if you've been hiding from yourself for too long, that exposure can feel like a storm. But that storm is sacred. It clears the way for something real. Because when Kundalini moves, it doesn't just change how you feel. It reshapes how you live. It demands presence. It rewrites your relationship with your body, your thoughts, your choices. It burns through illusion. And what's left is an illuminated, flowing version of you. Your true, awakened self, embodied and fully alive. There's a myth that Kundalini awakening is like flipping a switch, a sudden moment of bliss, ecstasy, and enlightenment. But the truth is far more subtle, far more real. When this energy begins to stir, it doesn't politely announce itself. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't care about your agenda. It moves in waves, powerful, unpredictable, and deeply intelligent. And when it does, your body becomes a temple and a battlefield all at once. Some people feel an intense heat rising up the spine, as if their bones are glowing from within. Others tremble uncontrollably, not from fear, but from a current that is too strong to suppress. You might feel pressure on your forehead, strange tingling in your limbs, or a sudden wave of emotion that surges from nowhere, crying, laughing, shaking, collapsing into silence. These are not symptoms of madness. They are signs that something deeper is waking up. Kundalini doesn't arise through logic. It arises through surrender. And that's why the process can be so confrontational. Because surrender is terrifying to the ego. It's the death of control, of certainty, of all the labels and stories you've created to feel safe. When Kundalini starts to move, it doesn't care who you think you are. It's only interested in what is real. It pushes your shadows to the surface. The unhealed pain, the buried shame, the beliefs you've outgrown but never questioned. All of it comes up. This is what most people don't expect. They come looking for cosmic fireworks and instead get hit with a deluge of repressed emotion. But this is the true initiation. Kundalini awakening isn't always beautiful. In fact, much of it is raw, messy, and even painful. You might lose interest in things that once obsessed you. Relationships might fall away, not out of cruelty, but because they were built on versions of you that no longer exist. You might feel lost, disoriented, estranged from the world. This is not failure. It's transformation. You're not going crazy. You're shedding the identity you built to survive in a world that never taught you who you truly are. And yet, even amidst the chaos, there are moments so pure, so still, so inexplicable that, something divine is happening. A peace that makes no sense. A clarity that cuts through years of noise. A connection to everything and nothing all at once. These are the glimpses that keep you going. They aren't rewards. They are reminders that the pain has a purpose, that you aren't being destroyed. You're being rebuilt. The problem is, modern spirituality rarely prepares people for this. It frames awakening as a product, a state of euphoria, a performance, a badge of honor. But Kundalini isn't impressed with how spiritual you look. It's moved by how honest you are willing to be. Are you ready to face the parts of yourself you've disowned? Are you willing to feel what you've numbed for years? Are you willing to drop everything that keeps you small just to find the version of yourself buried under layers of programming? This is why ancient traditions demanded discipline before initiation, not to exclude people, but to protect them. Because once the energy starts to rise, there's no turning back. You either evolve with it, or you are consumed by your resistance to it. That's why preparation is everything. Your body must be able to hold, your mind must be able to witness, and your soul must be willing to let go. Some awakenings happened gradually, like a slow fire building over years. Others arrived like lightning, sudden, shocking, undeniable. There's no single map. But the deeper truth is that your soul already knows what's needed. Your role isn't to control the process, it's to make yourself available for it. Clear the inner noise, sit in silence, cultivate awareness so that when the energy knocks at your door, you're able to open it with reverence, not fear. Because that's what this is, at its core. A return to reverence, not for tradition or doctrine, but for life itself, for the divine spark pulsing in your spine, waiting to be remembered. It doesn't need you to chase it, it needs you to be ready for it. And being ready doesn't mean perfection, it means truth, presence, courage. Kundalini doesn't just awaken you to a higher realm, it awakens you to this realm, to the sacredness of your body, your breath, your emotions, your pain. It awakens you to everything, and that's why it changes everything. Long before the word Kundalini was ever written in English, ancient civilizations were already working with it, honoring it, and building entire spiritual structures around it. They didn't call it energy as we do today, but they knew what it was. They felt it. They lived by it, because they understood what we've forgotten. That within the human body lies the key to transcending the human condition. And that power was never out there. It was always inside us. In the yogic traditions of ancient India, Kundalini was seen as the sacred feminine force, Shakti dormant, waiting to awaken and reunite with Shiva, the divine masculine, seated at the crown. This wasn't a myth, it was a sacred science. The entire system of chakras, nadis, mantras, and mudras was designed to support this inner resurrection. Yogis trained for years, sometimes decades, in silence, discipline, and devotion, not to achieve status, but to prepare the body for this awakening. They weren't seeking escapism. They were cultivating the capacity to hold divine energy in human form. But India wasn't alone. The symbols appear across cultures, across continents, and throughout thousands of years do consistently to be coincidence. In ancient Egypt, the uraeus, the cobra rising from the brow of pharaohs, wasn't just decoration. It represented awakened consciousness, the coiled serpent energy rising through the spine and activating the third eye. The eye of Horus wasn't just a symbol of protection, but a map of inner vision. Hermes' staff in Greek tradition, the caduceus, two serpents entwined around a central staff, is almost identical to the Ida and Pingala nadis of yogic anatomy. And in early Gnostic Christianity, long before church councils rewrote the narrative, there were whispers about the sacred feminine, Sophia as the source of inner divine wisdom. This knowledge wasn't separated by geography. It was coded in symbols, hidden in myths, passed in whispers through generations of mystics, healers, and seekers. But slowly, something shifted. As power centralized, truth became fragmented. Those with access to this knowledge either guarded it in mystery schools or had it stolen and distorted. The feminine was demonized. The serpent became a symbol of evil. The sacred body became shameful. And the divine energy within us was pushed into shadows. Not because it was false, but because it was powerful. It conquered consciousness, dismantling indigenous knowledge systems, dismissing them as primitive, and replacing them with ideologies that served control, not liberation. Western psychology pathologized spiritual experiences, religion externalized divinity, and science, for all its brilliance, amputated the soul from the body of its inquiry. What was left was an empty version of the human being. But still, the symbols survived, hidden in plain sight in sacred texts. Ancient art, mythologies, architecture, the spiral, the snake, the staff, the eye, the tree, all metaphors for the same thing. The ascension of energy, the evolution of consciousness through the human form. The story was never truly lost. It was just buried beneath the noise of dogma and distraction. And now, slowly, it returns not through institutions, but through individuals. People are feeling the stirring again. Dreams, sensations, spontaneous awakenings. They are remembering what their ancestors lived, that we were never meant to stay asleep, that this life, this body, this breath, all of it is part of the plan. You don't need to become someone else to awaken. You need to remember who you were before you forgot. The hidden story of Kundalini isn't just about the past, it's a mirror for the present. It shows us what was stolen and what still lives within us. It reminds us that the upward journey is ancient, sacred, and written into the very fabric of being human. And no matter how long it has been suppressed, distorted, or commercialized, truth has a way of returning. All it needs is one thing: someone ready to receive it. If Kundalini is the serpent, the chakras are the gates through which it must pass, and the nadis are the hidden rivers that carry its fire. This isn't abstract mysticism. It's an energetic anatomy mapped by sages thousands of years ago, with a level of precision that modern science is only beginning to approach. The body, as we know it, isn't just flesh and bone. It's a multidimensional field of consciousness, and Kundalini systems are the blueprint for activating it. There are over 72,000 subtle energy channels that crisscross the human system like an invisible web. Of these, 3 are considered most vital. Ida Pingala. Ida flows along the left side of the spine, linked to the moon, the feminine, the cooling force. Pingala flows on the right, associated with the sun, the masculine, the heating force. But the true mystery lies in the Sushumna, the central channel running directly through the spinal column. It is through this channel that Kundalini ignites when the inner balance is right, when duality dissolves, and when the mind ceases to block the current. As the serpent ascends, it pierces the chakras, spinning energy centers that sit at key points along the spine. But this isn't decoration for Instagram posts. Each chakra is a complex interface between mind, body, and soul. The root chakra governs safety and survival. The sacral governs emotions and creativity. The solar plexus deals with identity and will. The heart holds compassion and connection. The throat governs truth and expression. The third eye opens insight and intuition. And the crown, at the very top, is the gateway to the divine. But here's what few people will tell you. Awakening the chakras isn't just about color visualizations or repeating affirmations. It's a process of dismantling. When Kundalini activates a chakra, it doesn't just bless it. It cleanses it. It expels what's blocking it. This is why people report intense emotions, vivid dreams, and physical sensations. These aren't side effects. They are signs that old programming, emotional repression, trauma, and limiting beliefs are being burned away. It doesn't whisper. It clears. Each chakra corresponds not just to a physical organ or emotional theme, but also to a life developmental stage. The lower chakras are tied to early childhood, our sense of safety, our emotional bonds, our individuality. If those stages were disrupted, abandoned, or manipulated, energy gets stuck there. When Kundalini hits these centers, it pushes that stuck energy to the surface so it can be faced and healed. And only then can it rise. This is why the ascent isn't linear. You don't just move from one chakra to the next as if climbing a ladder. You spiral, return, revisit. One moment, you feel expansive and enlightened. The next, you're diving back into old wounds. This is the sacred cycle of purification, and it continues until the energy can flow freely, not just through your spine, but through your entire life. Because the goal isn't to escape the body. The goal is to bring light into it. It's not to ignore the human experience, but to illuminate it from within. When all chakras are awakened, aligned and balanced, not in theory, but in lived reality, Kundalini reaches the crown. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new mode of existence, one where you don't just think with your mind, but with your entire being. A mode where intuition becomes as sharp as eyesight, and love ceases to be an emotion and becomes a state of consciousness. This is what the mystics meant by enlightenment. Not floating away, but arriving fully here. Embodied, awake. You are not a mistake, you are not broken, you are a layered being, carrying imprints and energies across lifetimes. And Kundalini knows the way home, not because it was taught, but because it is coded within you. The chakras aren't just portals. They are your story, your map, your key. And the moment you stop seeking power outside of yourself and start tending to the temple within, that story begins to awaken. For years, the conversation about Kundalini was confined to temples, ashrams, and secret mystic circles. It was dismissed by mainstream science as fantasy or pseudo-spiritual metaphor, too mystical to be real, too ancient to be credible. But slowly, something shifted. With advancing technology and the rise of tools to measure the subtle, science began to bump up against truths yogis had spoken for millennia. It couldn't be ignored forever, because what they called prana, chi, or Kundalini, we now understand in fragments as electromagnetic fields, neural activity, and bioelectrical charge. The language is different, but the reality is converging. Your body isn't just a biological machine. It's an energetics. Every cell pulses with charge. Your heart emits an electromagnetic field that can be measured feet away from your body. Your brain operates not just chemically, but electrically, firing frequencies that shift with your state of consciousness. This isn't fringe science. It's a measurable, observable fact, and it brings us closer to understanding how something like Kundalini could exist. Not as a myth, but as a form of energy the West simply lacked a name for. Brainwave states offer a crucial insight. Most people live in beta or waking consciousness state of thinking, analyzing, doing. But as you relax, enter meditation, or even deep creativity, your brain shifts into alpha, theta, or delta state. These slower frequencies allow access to subconscious material, emotional release, and profound insight. During deep spiritual practices or during spontaneous awakenings, many report entering gamma states, high-frequency brainwaves linked to bliss, unity, consciousness, and heightened perception. What mystics describe as oneness or divine union, science records as altered neural activity. Kundalini appears to act as a biological upgrade, intensifying perception, reconfiguring emotional responses, and increasing the body's sensitivity to energy. Studies in neurotheology and transpersonal psychology have begun to document what practitioners have long known, that spiritual experiences leave physiological imprint. Breath alters blood chemistry. Meditation rewires gray matter. Trauma release rewrites emotional patterns. A bridge is being built, and the scientific mind is beginning to cross it. Then there's the nervous system. The vagus nerve, often called the soul nerve, connects the brain to essential bodily functions like heart rate, digestion, and breathing. It's fundamental to emotional regulation and highly active in people with deep meditative or spiritual practices. Many Kundalini awakenings, waves of euphoria or fear, mirror what occurs during vagal activation. It's not a coincidence. Ancient maps described the same phenomenon using the language available at the time, what we call neuroplasticity. They experienced as energy transformation. Some researchers have explored Kundalini in the context of the spinal cord and cerebrus. The fluid that bathes the brain and spinal column is not in. It pulses, carries nutrients, hormones, and, according to some, information. Certain meditative techniques aim to circulate this fluid intentionally, stimulating pineal gland activity and heightening awareness. The serpent ascending may not be so far removed from the reality of energy and fluid dynamics moving up the spinal column, illuminating centers along the way. Of course, science still struggles with everything it cannot measure, cannot replicate. Kundalini doesn't fit neatly into a lab experiment because it's not a one-size-fits-all experience. It's personal, unpredictable, deeply intimate, but that doesn't make it any less real. It just places it beyond the current scope of reductionist thinking. And perhaps that's the point. Perhaps Kundalini is meant to break the molds, not just within us, but all around us. Perhaps it exists to remind us that life is larger than equations, and that consciousness isn't a byproduct of the brain, but the field from which the brain arises. You don't have to choose between science and spirit. The true way forward lies in integration, not blindly clinging to tradition, and not worshipping intellect as the only god. Kundalini lives in the space between the two. It's the evidence of a body animated by consciousness and of a consciousness grounded in form. And the more we listen, the more we observe, the more we align, the closer we get to the ultimate truth. The universe is not out there. It's within you, waiting to awaken. From the moment you were old enough to sit still and raise your hand, you were taught what to think, what to memorize, what to believe. But you were never taught the truth about the energy pulsing within your own body. You were never told that you carry a force capable of awakening your higher self. Why? Because systems built on control don't benefit from self-aware. True awakening creates disruption. It creates people who question authority, reject false narratives, and stop living for external approval. And that's the last thing a control-based system wants. Education, as we know it, was never designed to set you free. It was designed to mold you, to prepare you for industry, for obedience, for predictability. Sit in rows, follow instructions, raise your hand to speak. The curriculum might change, but the structure doesn't. What's absent from almost every classroom is a conversation about consciousness, energy, breath, perception, about what it means to be fully human, and what you don't learn, you don't value. You're taught that success means fitting into a mold, not breaking out of it, and so the inner world is quietly dismissed. The result, a society disconnected from its own power, trained to see the body as a burden, emotions as weakness, and stillness as laziness. Kundalini defies all of it. It reclaims the body as sacred. It honors emotion as intelligence. It elevates inner experience as valid and vital. And this kind of thinking is dangerous to a system that thrives on external control. Because once a person connects with the energy within them, they become harder to manipulate. They stop being swayed by empty promises. They stop numbing themselves with distractions. They begin to listen to the inner truth and act from that place. And that kind of alignment is revolutionary. This is why Kundalini has been hidden, ridiculed, and misunderstood in the West. Not because it's false, but because it's powerful. Western institutions, academic, religious, political, systematically removed the sacred from the everyday, separated mind from body, and spirit from science. And in doing so, they've created a culture that is technologically advanced, but spiritually starved. We have more access to information than ever, but very little wisdom. We can send rockets into space, but we struggle to sit in silence with ourselves. And in the world of medicine, much of what people experience during spiritual awakening surges of energy, emotional releases, spontaneous movements is quickly labeled as pathology. Instead of guidance, they're offered diet. Instead of tools, they're given pills. This isn't healing. This is suppression. And again, it's not because doctors are malicious, it's because the system they operate in doesn't have a framework for inner energy. It wasn't built to see beyond the physical. It wasn't built to understand the soul. But things are changing. Slowly, quietly, beneath the surface. More people are waking up, asking different questions, refusing to ignore what they feel inside. They're realizing that the real curriculum was never in the classroom. It's in the breath, in the body, in the stillness, in the longing. They're reclaiming practices that were once deemed primitive. They're remembering that the ancients weren't naive. They were initiated, and they're no longer willing to pretend that everything real can be measured in a lab or approved by an institution. Because the truth is, we were born with everything we need. The map is within us. The energy is within you. The intelligence is within you. And the moment you start to believe that, truly believe it, you step out of the cycle of dependence and into something far more powerful. So you don't need permission to awaken. You don't need a certificate to explore your consciousness. You need courage. You need curiosity. And you need to unlearn everything that taught you to doubt yourself. Kundalini isn't reserved for saints or sages. It's in a single mom who meditates before her kids wake up. It's in the quiet seeker who is tired of superficial answers. It's in you right now, whether you recognize it or not. And once you recognize it, the systems that try to suppress you won't stand a chance. Kundalini doesn't arise when you want it to. You can't force it open with ambition or conjure it like a trick. It's not a reward for being spiritual enough or a badge for performing the right rituals. This energy doesn't respond to the ego. It responds to readiness. And readiness isn't about how much you know, but how much you are willing to unlearn to clear what no longer serves, to make space for what is already within you to reveal itself. Preparation isn't optional. It's the foundation, because when this energy moves, it moves through everything. Your nervous system, your memories, your emotions, your thoughts. If you're blocked, it'll show you where. If you're rigid, it will confront you. If you're open, it will teach you. That's why the first step isn't activation. It's purification, not in a religious sense, but energetically. Can your system handle the intensity? Can your mind stay stable when your identity begins to unravel? This is why ancient traditions didn't just teach meditation. They taught discipline, daily practice, breath work, fasting, silence, not to punish the body, but to refine it, to make it a clear vessel, unclouded by distractions or overwhelmed by chaos. In a world that glorifies stimulation, stillness becomes sacred. And that stillness isn't passive, it's powerful. It tunes you to the subtle, it trains you to feel, and it teaches you to witness, not react. When Kundalini moves, witnessing is everything. Without it, you drown in the intensity. With it, you navigate through it. Start with the body, not forcing it, but listening to it. What does it need to feel safe, connected, alert? Movement helps. Yoga, walking, stretching, but not to perform, just to connect. Breath is the bridge. It tells all about your state. Shallow breath, scattered mind. Deep breath, anchored presence. Learn to breathe with intention, not just when you're meditating, but when you're living. Awareness doesn't start on the cushion, it starts in every moment you choose to return to yourself. Emotionally, preparation means honesty. Can you tell the truth about how you feel? Can you sit with discomfort without trying to fix it? Can you forgive the parts of yourself you've been taught to hide? This energy will bring up everything you repress, not to punish you, but to set you free. But liberation isn't light without shadow. If you seek only bliss, you are not seeking truth. Truth includes everything: pain, joy, anger, love. The more you can hold, the more you can transform. Mentally, the practice is humility. You are not here to control, you are here to surrender to it. This doesn't mean being passive. It means being available, observing your patterns, letting go of the need to label every sensation, to explain every shift. Let the experience teach you. Don't try to master it. Let it master you until mastery becomes natural, not forced. And most importantly, let go of the rush. Awakening is not a race. It's not about getting somewhere. The energy already knows the way. You just need to stop blocking it. Stop chasing peak state spiritia or enlightenment as a destination. Kundalini doesn't care about your vision board. It cares about your presence, your integrity, your willingness to feel everything. If you're reading this and something within you stirs not your curiosity, but something deeper, quieter, more certain, that is a sign. Not that you should chase Kundalini, but that you might be ready to become still enough to meet it. The door is already there. The serpent waits. All it asks is that when it rises, you don't recoil. That when the fire comes, you receive it not as a threat, but as a guide. Discipline isn't restriction. It's devotion, not to a belief system, but to your own becoming. Not to a guru, but to the sacredness of what you carry. You are not preparing for a moment. You are preparing for a lifetime of clarity. A life built not on what you were taught, but on what you remember. When Kundalini rises, it doesn't just change how you feel inside. It changes how you see everything around you. It alters the lens through which you interpret the world. Things that once consumed your attention begin to fall away. The incessant chase for approval, possessions, or validation starts to feel empty, not because you've become uncaring, but because you've tuned into a deeper frequency than the surface noise. You begin to recognize what's real, what's worth your energy, and what has been draining you for years without you even realizing it. This is the part of awakening that isn't talked about enough. The integration, the return. Because after the fire, after the flood, after the bliss and the breakdowns, comes the quiet question: how do I live now? And the answer isn't always clear. You don't get a script, you don't get a title. You simply start to move through the world differently, slower, more discerning, softer, fiercer. You speak less, but with more weight. You listen more, but with more depth. You start to notice the sacred in the mundane, the way light moves across the floor, the rhythm of your own breath, the truth behind someone's words. Life ceases to be a blur and begins to become a mirror. But with this new vision comes responsibility. Kundalini doesn't make you better than others. It simply makes you more aware, and awareness brings choices. Will you live in alignment, or will you betray what you now know? Will you honor what your intuition tells you, even if it goes against the grain? This isn't about being perfect. It's about being real, about living in a way that doesn't abandon the truth you've touched. The world will keep moving fast. People will keep selling you distractions. But once this energy has awakened in you, something irreversible happens. You stop falling for illusions. You begin to feel the weight of what is false. You can't go back to pretending. This doesn't mean you withdraw from life. It means you enter it fully, but on your own terms. You can still work, pay bills, face challenges, but underneath it all is a stillness that doesn't move, a clarity that doesn't waver. And that's what true freedom feels like. To live with Kundalini isn't to escape reality. It's to expand it. It's to see with more eyes, hear with more ears, feel with more of yourself than ever before. You will have moments when everything feels overwhelming, because you'll be feeling not just the surface but the under. But you will also have moments of profound peace, not because life is easy, but because you are anchored in something eternal. The ego will try to make this about status, about being special. Don't let it. You aren't awakening to rise above others. You are awakening to reconnect with them, to see the divine in every face, every failure, every breath. That is the true gift of Kundalini. Not power over life, but union with it. You've come a long way on this journey. Not just through ideas, but through reminders. Something within you already knows what you've just read. This wasn't new. It was an ancient memory. Now the question is, what will you do with it? Don't let this just be information. Let it be integration. Let it live in your choices, in your breath, in your relationships. Let it shape how you wake up in the morning, how you speak to yourself, how you create and contribute. Because awakening isn't something you had, it's something you become. Day after day, truth after truth, breath after breath. If this video resonated with you and sparked further curiosity about Kundalini and spiritual awakening, let us know by commenting below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Seeds of Akasha channel for more content that expands consciousness and helps us unravel the mysteries of the universe and ourselves. Your awakening journey is important to us.